Started out on a one-way train. Always knew where I was gonna go next. Didn't know until.
Welcome to Pull in Perseverance. I'm honored to introduce you to three remarkable young pharmacists, Malasatsi Monometsi, Mohammed Sidat, and Amisha Soma Kasiram, who are making waves in the clinical trials arena. They embody the spirit of innovation and determination that Steve Jobs famously described when he said, and I quote, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do," unquote. These individuals are not only shaping the future of pharmacy, but also demonstrating the power of passion and perseverance in driving meaningful change. Let's dive into the podcast. Welcome to Pull in Perseverance, and thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you here. So, just to kick things off, can we get some introductions? Malitsatsi, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Malitsatsi Munameti. I'm a pharmacist here at VetRHI. So VetRHI is an organization that was founded 30 years ago by Prof. Helen Rees. It's part of the Wits University family, and we fall under the WHC, which is the Wits Health Consortium. So VetRHI has a vision to address Africa's health concerns by tackling them through innovation and research. So the work that we do is primarily focused on infectious diseases such as HIV and TB. We also have climate and health. We have sexual reproductive health, and we also have vaccines and COVID um, projects ongoing. So I'm under the Implementation Science Directorate, which is led by Professor Saika Malik. And we are basically taking these innovations that have been found to be effective in clinical trials and bringing them to real life to see how these can be rolled out at a larger scale. Yeah. So I'll hand over to my colleague Hamisha to take us through her.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Prof. Thank you for having us. My name is Hamisha Soma Kasiram. So I'm also a research pharmacist at Pharmacists. I fall under the Directorate of Maternal and Child Health. So our core focus is more prevention and treatment in HIV, TB, and infectious diseases, particularly in our vulnerable populations, which is the maternal population, adolescents, and children. So it's more vaccine preventable diseases, but we also deal with HIV treatment studies and trials. And yeah, that's what the core focus of the directorate. I fall under the guidance of and leadership of Prof. Lee Fairley.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Prof.
Mohammed.
Hi to the
Hi.
viewers as well. I'm Mohammed Sidat, and I'm the responsible pharmacist at VetRHI Research Center Pharmacy. And I fall under the Directorate of Clinical Trials, and we are led by Prof. Tesla Pelani Phillips. And our work involves a lot of sexual and reproductive health, as well as HIV prevention, as well as STI testing, and a lot of information can be found on our website under each directorate. A lot of our publications and all of that will be found there. So we encourage all our viewers to please have a look at it, and then you can learn more about what we do.
That's awesome. Thank you. So I think, from my experience as being an academic, I think clinical trials is touched on in the curriculum. We do talk about it, but I think it's not given enough depth in terms of understanding exactly what it all involves. So before I get to how you got here, can you just give me a brief summary of what clinical trials is all about based on where you're situated and what exactly you do?
Yeah,
Malitsatsi?
yeah, so clinical trials is basically testing new drugs or investigational products in humans. So what happens is you would have preclinical trial phases where the drugs are tested in animals.
Okay,
And
before you go on, Malasatsi, so you're missing a step. So who does the clinical trials? So these, I would assume these are big pharma. These are companies that are innovator companies
Yes.
that are producing new drugs on the market.
Yes.
yeah,
And these are clinical trials that will be done worldwide, I assume, or is it
Yes.
targeted to Africa? Is it
so
worldwide?
worldwide, it depends on what health problem exists in which
Okay.
um
Yeah.
country or area or region. and the pharmaceutical companies or the innovator. And sometimes they will be supported by sponsors who are interested in that field, and they will support the product development of that drug. And then that will move to the human phase, which is the clinical trials phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and also the post-marketing phase, which is phase 4. Yeah.
Yes.
So in these 4 phases, the drugs are in humans, unlike the preclinical trial phase where they would be in animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Awesome. Yes, please
just
go ahead.
based on the question you asked, is it worldwide or only in South Africa? There was a question, I think, about how do we diversify the clinical trial population? So just to answer that, also in that same sentiment, a lot of maybe for example, for HIV, in Africa or Southern Africa, that's a critical, component of, a lot of our population are affected by HIV. So it only makes sense that the trial comes here as well, in Africa, in Southern Africa, so that we can do the trial on the population that it's going to serve. It doesn't make sense if the trial is only done in the US or in Europe. And no, just to answer the question, so that's why Africa is definitely involved in the clinical trials for products that we are mainly going to be using it for. So, and now the entire system or the clinical trial, how can I say, we're moving more towards a decentralized system. So in the US, you'd find maybe some sites would have satellite sites where they can go, deep into the community to get the population that's actually going to be using the new product. So yeah, just to maybe touch a little bit on that.
Yeah, so when she asked the question, I think it was my fourth year student, and she wanted to know how do you get your population, your sample? I think it was her. Can't remember if it was Stancha. So how would you get a diverse population within the clinical trial? Because I think that would be challenging to be able to get people to come onto a trial because of the risks associated, obviously. From an ethical perspective, that's a huge component.
Yes. I think it's also the understanding of what is clinical trials. Sometimes sometimes people have a misunderstanding as to what we do, or that type of thing. But looking at the demographics, I think also under the WITS RHI umbrella, all the populations are served under each directorate. So depending on the studies that we do, that's the population that we target in the catchment area. So we are based in Hillbrow, where socioeconomic circumstances take there's problems with that, and that's how we look at the demographics. And also we have good recruitment teams that go out into the clinics, and we tell them what is our organization about, what is clinical trials about, so we can deduce the myths and misconceptions that are probably associated with clinical trials. But I do feel, now with research, there's a much more better understanding versus maybe a few years ago. So I think that's how we also recruit the participants, because in essence, the whole point of the clinical trials that we do is to protect the rights of the participants that are and subjects in the clinical trial, and everything is done ethically.
Yeah, because that's a core focus. Yeah.
Yes. If I can also add, we also follow good participatory practices. So there is a lot of community engagement. So you'll have a GPP team going into the communities, engaging with the communities to inform them about the trials that we're doing, and to gain their understanding and also their buy-in, so that they understand what we're doing, and they don't feel like we're using them as guinea pigs.
Absolutely. And from what I'm hearing, pharmacists play such an important role in this. The education component is critical to understanding in any aspect in health, to be able to deliver and educate people and empower them to make informed decisions. So that's key. So now that you have your participants, and before I forget, I want you to mention that these are all unregistered products. So they don't have a scheduling status as such, because they're unregistered in South Africa, but SAPRA obviously is aware of the clinical trial, and you are part of the clinical trial webpage where your information's on that clinical trials page. And so once you now have the product coming into the country, into these phases of the clinical trial, then you would obtain your participants, And your role now comes in where you would provide these medicines to these patients after they've been procured from wherever, and that's another component as your role within this organization is to also procure the medicine. Am I right?
Yes.
100%.
So,
And then, yeah, please go ahead.
so in terms of procurement, it also depends on who is the sponsor, who's providing
Yes.
the
Yes.
medication. So in terms of our international studies, some of them we get it from overseas, the deliveries come from the US. And we are in clinical trials, especially in the pharmacy component, we are the custodians of this investigational product. So from the delivery until receipt and storage, and then preparation and administration, as well as dispensing, we are the key component in ensuring that it is within the protocol requirements of the temperature. We maintain temperatures at all times. We record, we control the temperature of all of this because they're investigational, to ensure that the stability of the medication is not compromised in any way before it is being delivered or dispensed to the participant or patient. So we are very involved in that. And also with overseas delivery of medication, we have to understand that there's lag times. Sometimes you would order a drug and it would only come 3 weeks later because of all of the VAT exemption process and the implication of SARS and it coming to the border and then delivery to us. So we in the clinical trials, I think that's what we need to highlight in terms of pharmacy is that the IP and the investigational product is the most important component. And also, if there's no drug, there's no trial.
There's no trial,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's the most
Exactly.
important thing. And I mean, any temperature excursion or anything, there's a lot of steps to follow. Explain it to your sponsor. Why did it happen? What was your preventative measure in case it happens again? And every study has different requirements for storage conditions. One would be 15 to 30, whereas another study requires 20 to 25. So that's where you have to procure a incubator so that it can house it in the 20 to 25. And I think another component also is to ensure that when we are dispensing medication, there's adequate counseling and communication skills that we are equipped with, because this is not your normal registered drug. This is the dispensation, administration, preparation differs it's very different from your normal medication that's found in retail.
Yeah.
So we have to have a lot of adherence strategies that we have to be equipped with, counseling, so to ensure that the participant, when they go home, they've had full understanding of how to take the medication at home, and they've had full understanding, because sometimes also it's not only the caregiver, there's an aunt or someone else that's also administering meds. So that's where we come in and ensuring that the adherence part is fully,
Yes.
Yeah.
comprehensive.
100%. 100%.
And
Yeah,
maybe,
sorry,
oh,
Madam
sorry.
Etiko.
So maybe to touch on again, sometimes we do have registered drugs
Yes.
that
Yeah.
can be used as like a comparator.
Yes.
So depending
Okay.
on how your protocol is designed, the registered drug would be like the standard of care, and we would be comparing the new drug against the standard of
see.
care. So, or even a new indication for the drug, even though the drug is registered, maybe a new dosing, a new indication can be investigated in clinical trials. So yeah, it's both unregistered
Yeah.
and can also be registered drugs. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you could do an Ozempic trial for
Yeah.
for weight
Yeah.
loss, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, I mean, clinical trials is so administrative in the fact that you have so many protocols you need to follow, and obviously whoever your sponsor is, whichever pharmaceutical company owns the product, really they're very tough in terms of what their expectations are. And that should be expected in this role, is that you need to be geared up for a lot of administrative roles, a lot of
Yes.
paperwork, a lot of quality management systems, I would imagine as well, where you have to have strict control of everything, be it your patient and your product as well. Am I right? Yeah.
No,
So now,
100%.
yeah, sorry. So going on to how you got into this space. I mean, clinical trials is always almost like it's something you're aware of, but you're not sure how to get into.
Yeah.
Because there's not many in the country. There may be a lot, but there's not really a lot, if you know what I'm
So
saying.
it's a
So
very
how did
small
you?
industry.
Yeah, tell me how
We
you got
have
in, Mahmood.
Yeah, so look, with for me, I would definitely like to highlight this. It was in my fourth year at Wits University when we had our research project. So in that research project, it's like a mini trial. You have to come up with your own protocol. You have to do all the writing yourself, the read up, the methodology, conduct your research, and then write out the results, do your poster, and present that results. So we had just a feel for that. And I think I researched the effects of bee venom on cancer cells with Prof. So at that point, I didn't know this is a career option I could pursue, but it was definitely an introduction to it. And then later on, post internship in ComServe, I just got a lucky break. There was a part-time role. I applied for it, and I managed to learn about it. I inquired, oh, this is something I can go down. I did a lot of research, found out about clinical trials, about good clinical practice, the ICH, and all of that. And I just got lucky, and I got my foot into the door. And after 2 or 3 years, I am now at VersaRHI and doing the best research in the continent. And yes, I don't know, Malisati, maybe you want to tell us how you got into research.
Yeah, so with
Before,
me,
sorry, Madam Sati, before we get to you, Mohammed, so
Yeah.
it's interesting that you said that you took a part-time role.
Yes.
And is it something you wanted to pursue, and that's why you took this part-time role? You knew you had a vision of where you wanted to move,
Yes.
or was it purely, okay, this role came up, let me take it, let me see what it was about? What was your
So
motivation? Because
post-com serve, everyone's in, I'll take anything but retail.
yes,
So,
yes.
and it's very difficult. I mean, in our current economic climate, it's very difficult post-ComServe. I think earlier this year there was a pharmacist strike, where the ComServes were not getting any opportunities, and it's still sadly that is the case. When I was post-ComServe, it was that as well. They were honestly, it's very tough to get into any industry with no experience.
Yeah.
My advice to fourth years is if you do your internship in manufacturing, you have an advantage. Post ComServe, you did your 1 year in manufacturing. So now you've got that year, they'll take you on as a junior. So for me, unfortunately, it was very tough. I only did my internship ComServe, and I didn't have no research experience. So to get a full-time role as a research pharmacist would be very difficult. However, I'll definitely say a locum role or a part-time role would be much better to get into it, because the expectation is you're not there for a full day and you have all this tons of responsibility, and the pharmacist would, or the team would be very much more accommodating to teaching you, because they understand that, okay, you are a fresher, you don't have any experience, and then you learn all the basics, correct? So definitely starting off as a local or part-time would be the key into, and you mentioned something about vision. So yes, you start off as a locum, and I had the vision that yes, I'm going to learn it. And I think your attitude and mindset is very important.
Yes.
When you come in, I said I'm going to, learn this new skill set. It's a completely different skill set that you have to learn, and a lot of information that you have to grasp quickly. So yeah, you've got to come in with the right mindset and the right attitude. And then the vision was honestly to get into a better full-time role. And yeah, that was just my experience.
That's great. Thank you. Manisati, yes, sorry for cutting you off.
no worries. So with me, it was almost similar. So it was 6 months post ComServe, and I knew that I wanted to get into a field where I could actually make impact, great impact in the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a role that would actually push me and get me to feel like I'm actually contributing
Yes.
to improving our society's health status. So I saw a role and I applied. I was also research naive, but I looked into the organization, found out as much as I could about the organization and the work that they do.
Mm.
And that made the interviewers see that I'm interested, I'm eager, I want to get into this. So they gave me a chance and I got in, and almost 8 years later, I'm still here.
Wow, awesome. Hamisha, you?
For me also, I think I was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I was a grade one pharmacist in the DOH setting, and I was looking for a more opportunity just to expand my skill set in another aspect of pharmacy. And I had actually a friend who was a research pharmacist at the time at Wits RHI, and there was a job posting. And she said, "Why don't you apply?" And I said, I was a bit skeptical because I was also research naive, and I wasn't sure if I was going to, be successful or not. And I said, why not? Let me just take the chance. And like Malik said, I also researched what RHA was about. My friend also gave me a brief overview about what research pharmacists do. And, when you see the website and see what impact you're having with you and the difference that you are making, I think that also motivated me to apply. And, I did get the interview. And fast forward 8 years as well, I'm still here loving what I do. And yeah, that's how I got in. But just to highlight, post the COVID-19 pandemic, I think that's when research came into the spotlight even more. So I think the demand for jobs in the research sector is much more higher right now. And, at that point, we were research naive, and we were grateful for the opportunity of, getting the position. I think now, because of that demand and, the competitive nature, it's good to research and do trainings, accredited trainings like a good clinical practice, which is the standards that govern how to conduct research and protecting the rights of the participant. Just to have that advantageous, have that. It's just advantageous to have, and I think having research is also advantageous. So it's also 8 years ago versus now. It's a bit different, but just to understand what research is about. And I think good clinical practice is a nice baseline to understand that before, pursuing this avenue of career. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I think as pharmacists, we are so versatile in our in terms of what we could do, and you make it sound easy, but I'm sure it was not. It was not easy to get into the groove of a clinical trial site. But I think you're given the skills in order to say, you know what, I can do this. I have some background knowledge, and I'll tap into that in order to be able to move forward. And the good clinical practice course that you're talking about is available everywhere. Am I right? If I'm not mistaken, it's quite. Is it free though? Is it available online for free?
Yes,
I'm not
Yes.
sure. I can't.
But
With Tree. Oh yes, with Tree.
yes,
Yes.
Tree is available online, but there's also organizations that do the training, so you can attend in person.
Yes.
Because as a research naive person, it's better to have someone in front of you explaining all these concepts, because
Yes.
it can be overwhelming
Yeah.
to learn about all the Nuremberg code and all of those,
Yes.
all that jargon
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
be
it's a
confusing.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the ICH guidelines are intense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is, and the ethical aspects is such a core component of clinical trials. And as much as we do ethical practice in the curriculum, I don't think we go into that depth
No.
that clinical trials requires. Um, so do you think having a master's will add value in terms of getting a job? It's definitely going to add value in terms of doing the job, but in terms of getting the job, do you think you need to come in when you're applying, or do you not think it's really necessary and you could do it whilst working in a clinical trial site?
It's either or.
Yeah.
So the minimum is a B
B
farm,
Farm.
Yeah.
but with a master's, you have an added advantage because if you have published, then the organization can see that you are already on the path of being like a researcher, and it adds a bit more advantage for you. But also, if you don't have a B farm, it's not like if you don't have a master's and only have a B farm, it's not the end of the world, because as people, we grow, we evolve. So you can also pursue a master's while you're in the organization and in the role, and even go beyond masters for some people.
Because like I think it's definitely advantageous I mean, if you come in as a pharmacist with an M.Pharm or Master of Science or Master of Public Health, it's 100%. You'll be able to get hands-on experience of a clinical trial, and with RHI's, joint appointment policy, and they definitely encourage people to study further.
Yes.
And you'll now have the opportunity to conduct your own research. You could, I mean, I know there's someone at our site our technical head, she's pursuing her PhD at site level. So you can go and apply for grants, and the institute will encourage you to do that. And if you've already done your master's, it just sets it out much more easier to make way for your own research. I mean, all researchers have their own niche that they want to get into.
Yes.
So this is a perfect platform if you come in with a master's of some sort. But even if you don't, even if you come in with a B Farm, there's room to grow, and you can then start thinking like a researcher. Get at Versa RHI, anyone here, you can go into doors. It'll open doors to you to get insights to all the profs that are here. So many people with PhDs who can guide you and help you. So I think it's both ways. There's room to grow, and
Okay. So from a research perspective, doing research within the organization, do you actually publish papers with the team? Are you an author on those papers? So do you build your research niche in that space as well?
Yeah, the vision of Vatsarachai is about capacity building and upskilling. And the nice thing about us in pharmacy, it is not just limited to the conduct of pharmacy management in the clinical trial. There's a lot of, as Mo said, a lot of opportunities. And with the data that we get from some of our studies, we do review it, and we then are involved in grant writing. We're involved in manuscript writing, as well as being collaborators or primary authors. So currently, I am assisting in a paper where I will be a primary author, and it's another niche and another skill set, because it is difficult to get into that space of writing and doing grant writing, but
Yes.
they allow you, and there's mentorship, and the PIs, they assist you. So because they have been writing for so many years, so they guide you, and you learn to write and know how to publish. And we've been mentioned in some of our studies that have proved fruitful as collaborators, and you're making that small difference to a larger scale. So there is that.
That's wonderful.
opportunity.
So not only are you doing the conventional role of a pharmacist, but you're expanding your horizons which is so diverse and dynamic, and you don't get bored, I would imagine, because there's always things to do.
Every day is the
Yeah.
same.
Every day is a different,
Yeah.
different challenges, and
Different requirements.
That's wonderful. So you talked about mentorship. You mentioned mentoring. One of the questions online was, prior to getting to the space, did you have a mentor? And while you're here, do you have a mentor? Because I think mentoring is crucial in career growth. I'm not sure if it's a proven fact, but I'm sure it is so that somebody holding your hand through your career really helps you. So did you, Malasatsi, did you have?
So prior, I didn't have anyone within the research space. I just had my previous manager who was very supportive. But then as soon as I got into the research space, my manager again, my supervisor, they were very supportive. They would mentor me throughout the process. I remember with the first protocol that I worked on, I literally sat in the office with my manager, and we had sticky notes outlining the process that we would follow to implement the pharmacy component of the protocol. So that was very helpful. And even beyond that, within the organization, it doesn't even have to just be your direct line manager. Even the other team members, like, you learn so much from them. You can always ask for any assistance from them, because the organization has so many experienced, very smart people, very technical people who know a lot about different things. So it's always easy to reach out to different people and ask any question you have, and they are more than happy to mentor you. So there's a culture of knowledge sharing and mentorship within the institute. So it makes it bearable despite all the challenges we come across on a daily basis.
Thank you. And Mohammed,
So
did you
I
have a
wouldn't
mentor?
say I had a mentor post ComServe, because I mean all my peers would have been at the same level, and everyone's trying to figure out what's the next step and things like that. But I'll definitely say I had maybe mentored someone else once I was in the space. I told my friends about it and told them, listen, this is definitely a role you'd want to pursue. these are the benefits, and made them aware of the role. And I've definitely got a few friends that joined as a research pharmacist, and definitely gave them a lot of advice and tips and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say I would definitely be a mentor to someone else, but for myself, I did not have direct mentor to get into this space.
Okay, thank you. Amisha?
Yeah, I did have a friend who was in the research space, so she did mentor me. But I think I also, when I joined, I was also research naive. So the two pharmacists that I started working with, I see them as my mentors because I don't think I would have been here without them training me and sharing all the knowledge of protocol implementation, study startups, and monitoring visits and all of that. And I think it's also a two-way street. With whatever I've learned, I've imparted that knowledge to my team members now who were also research naive when they joined the organization. So everything that I've learned, and over the years, you learn what to do, what not to do. It's preventative actions, knowledge sharing, and I feel like I've mentored them. And the cycle will continue as we go on. And my manager mentors me also. So as Malisata said, it's always ongoing. I think we mentor each other.
Yeah, definitely.
We have that culture, and we are not
Yes.
limited to this. We have a quite big, large pharmacy committee under the Vatsaracha umbrella. And if we have a study startup or we're not sure, we ask each other for advice. What do you think? Does this source documentation, will this work for this study? Or if it's a study they have previously done. So we mentor each other, we help navigate through new studies or during audits, or this is what to do, what not to do, share our experiences, our documents. So I think mentorship is on different layers and levels within
I
the
agree.
organization and in the pharmacy as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. As you guys are speaking, I remember that quote that I read somewhere. You rise by lifting others,
Yes.
and that's exactly what you epitomize. So that's really wonderful. That's great to hear. I would imagine you also go to conferences and you attend workshops and I'm sure international travel. So that's the opportunities also that exist within this space. And you get to interact with people on an international platform where you are that are worldwide. That is amazing. So going back to your role and in terms of challenges, what are the challenges that you face? Frozen.
Okay,
Freezing
we're
up.
just having some technical difficulty, but can you hear me?
I think it's breaking.
Yeah, you back, guys are back on. Yeah.
Okay,
Ah,
so
yeah.
challenges, I
Okay.
would definitely say there are a lot of challenges in clinical research, but mainly it's more to do with being, very pedantic and very strict on your documentation. Because remember, a clinical trial depends on the outcomes have to be credible. So what people do at site influences the credibility of those results. That's why it's such an, everything has to be documented, everything has to be recorded. And the data that we collect, we upload it, onto an electronic system. So all of that has to match your source that's on your paper. Like, so, for example, that could be one of the challenges, just recording or administration and making sure everything is filed correctly. Another challenge would maybe be temperature control, for example. From the time your shipment comes to site, it comes with a temperature logger. So you've got to stop the temperature logger, ensure that there was no deviations during transit. And then when it's stored on site, all the way up to dispensation, that temperature has to be maintained. So sometimes in our environment with load shedding, that could cause some serious challenges. If your fridge goes out and now the temperatures are spiking, what do you do? At 2 o'clock in the morning, for example, what are you going to do now? So you've got to now think of ways to mitigate that risk. Backup systems, you have to have a generator, you have to have a UPS, and contingency plans in place to prevent the temperature deviation because we want to maintain the integrity of that product.
Yes.
So many other challenges. What other challenges do you guys think?
Yeah, from a technical perspective, I think that's what you expect, right? But from more from a personal perspective, what are the challenges you think you face personally as a pharmacist within this site? What does that
Yeah.
seem?
I think juggling
Yeah.
different uh, priorities, because as pharmacists within this field, we are involved in a lot of studies which are at different phases within their life cycle. So you need to be able to manage your time appropriately, prioritize, and make sure that even when you are doing the traditional pharmacy activities, you are maintaining your quality. So
Yes.
you put a lot of pressure on yourself not to make a
Mm.
mistake
Yeah.
because, like Mo said, the data integrity is very important. You can't
Yeah.
also risk with, for example, dispensing the incorrect product
Yeah.
to a participant. So you put on so much pressure on yourself to do the right thing, and that can take a strain on you. So you need to be able to develop systems
Yes.
to manage the pressure and be able to carry out all the studies at different phases because the different phases require different activities. So yeah, I think that's
I think that's the main
yeah.
one. Just maintaining,
Yeah.
Like quality of
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
all the time. So you always
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you're
keeping
hard on
track
yourself.
and keeping
Because
track
yeah,
of what's going
yeah.
on.
There's
You know,
no good and
Mm.
yeah.
throughout
Amisha, would
studies, what's
you
going on.
yeah, would you say this? I'm going to come back to you, Malasati, because but you said something interesting. But with you, Amisha, is it also the same type of personal challenges that you say you'd face, or is there something else?
Think one minute, as you said, you every study that you conduct and you are in charge of, you want to maintain the same golden standard, and you are hard on yourself. You have that pressure, so you in real time you're always checking yourself. You're always doing QC checks. Each step of that process, from the dispensation to the preparation of a vaccine or counting of the pills, you are doing quality control. I think the challenge is also that it doesn't stop there once the dispensation has occurred. You are also doing quality assurance in retrospect. So there's a lot of QA going ongoing, but also just juggling that because you have to prioritize your patients first. Then in between certain challenges, maybe staff capacity for the day or how you're going to work around that. So I think it's just to maintain that. And I think it is hard, but the outcomes and the benefits outweigh what the challenges are because you know you're making a difference and that's the take home message. So and it's what we signed up for. And
Yeah.
I mean, still
Yes.
8 years later, we still love what we do. The challenges will always be there, always be
Yeah.
in our sector or any sector. But yeah,
Mm.
I can reiterate what Malasasi said.
Yeah, because you don't want to be a boring job, right? You want it to be as exciting and challenging as possible. Not
Yes,
too challenging, but challenging enough. So,
and you
Malasati,
learn
you
from
said
it.
that yes, exactly. Adversity breeds strength. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
So
Um, So, Malasati, you said something interesting in terms of how you manage all of these different roles and expectations and how you hard on yourself. So, from a personal perspective, how do you think what self-care and what balancing act do you need to have in order to maintain that? Because I think as pharmacists, we do juggle a lot of things. So do you do things outside of what you normally do in your work to be able to manage the pressure? Or is it
Yeah,
just
so
chatting to your colleagues that really gives you the strength?
yeah, I can say my colleagues here have been very supportive. We work in different directorates, but we're holding hands all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think family
Yeah,
also
teamwork.
being
Yeah.
yeah, being rooted in family, being rooted in your values, understanding what your purpose and life goals are. Those help me balance out because yes, everyone makes mistakes and you shouldn't be too hard on yourself when you make a mistake. Mistakes are just an opportunity to learn. And yeah, I think that's what I've used so far in terms of balancing myself out. Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful. Very lovely. That's very insightful. So we spoke about challenges. What has been the most memorable thing in your role so far? As a pharmacist, we have so many rewarding moments, but there's always one that really stands out in your mind. Hamisha?
I think for me, when a product gets registered, and I think
Yeah.
it's always that memorable, you've
Mm.
made a difference. Your small part has contributed to such a large scale. I remember being part of a study that was dose finding in pediatrics for dolutegravir, and fast forward 2023, our ART guidelines have now included dolutegravir 10 milligrams dispersible. So I've seen it from the inception and now being rolled out into the DOH setting. So I feel, I've contributed at least a certain percentage of that. So that's
Mm.
memorable. And we're giving different choices to the population and the public in terms of prevention and treatment. So I feel, that's always just that warm, fuzzy feeling when you see that come to life and you know that you're making a difference.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. And you, Mohammed, what is your most memorable?
It's definitely the same thing what Hamisha has said. I mean, that's why we're here and that's our purpose. So, when you are busy working on a trial and, when you reach a certain milestone and it's actually positive results, I think for the entire team, I'm speaking for the entire team, there's that warm, fuzzy feeling that all this work that we're putting into it, at the end of the day, it's very rewarding to know that the work we're doing now, it's going to contribute to people we're not going to ever meet, thousands of people. For example,
Yes.
if you're speaking about a particular event, I'll definitely speak about our current trial, the Purpose One trial. The viewers can go and just research, what it is. It's the lenacapavir trial. It's a um, long acting prep study. It's an injection. So yeah, just go and read more about it. And we're currently in conducting the trial, so I don't want to speak too much about it. But yes, there were positive results back from the sponsor. So we're looking forward to that, and I think that was definitely the epitome for my short career.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to change the space. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Prof, are you familiar with
Yes,
the yes.
Malasatsi and I were talking about it actually.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's going to be groundbreaking. We look forward to that.
Yeah.
And Malasatsi, what was your most memorable moment?
So I think there's been quite a few. So there's cabotegravir, which is now registered in South Africa. I worked on the clinical trial, and now it's being rolled out through implementation science studies within DOH facilities. So seeing it in clinical trials versus seeing it in real life has been so
Yeah.
fulfilling, because I know that every time I stressed about preparing for injection,
Yeah.
using aseptic technique, it actually resulted in the product being registered and so many people accessing it through the implementation science projects. And the other one is the lenacapavir.
Yes.
So it's exciting for me as well, because our project might be pursuing the lenacapavir.
Rollout.
Yeah, so it's still
Mm.
like it's an opportunity that we could look into. So yeah, it's been quite fulfilling.
Yeah.
That's
if I can say.
awesome.
Yeah.
What a rewarding job you guys have. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So I know you guys are home based, meaning that you're at a particular site in Johannesburg. But I know that you have clinical trial associates, I think they called, where they would go out on site. So do you know what their roles entail? Is it similar to what you do?
So you mean clinical research associates, the
Yes.
CRA. Okay, so
Yes.
they are monitors. So they would be contracted by the sponsor of the study to come and see what the site is doing. Is the site following protocols? Are there any deviations? Are the deviations reported to ethics?
Yeah.
Does the site have all the
Mm.
approvals in place? Are all the staff trained? All the staff delegated appropriately and carrying out activities as delegated. So they would come in as an additional quality monitoring.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the bridge between the site and the sponsor.
Yeah.
So they're
Okay.
filling that gap of, ensuring that what the site is doing and is the data, credible, and they've just verified that, all the data is correct. and just to
Okay.
assist. If, for example, if I have a problem with the IP, I can report it to the monitor. They can escalate the issue to the sponsor. So they just liaise that gap between the site and the sponsor. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Thank you. So that's separate from your role. So you wouldn't do that. Okay.
But just to add,
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry,
just to
Amisha.
add,
Yeah.
when we're doing our quality management and our quality assurance, we have to think like a monitor. We have to think, what would they be checking? Have all my ducks in a row? Is all my source up to date? Is all the trainings, all my delegations up to date? So prior to their visit, we
Yes.
would be, completing all of that, checking all of our files, all of that. So you have to think like a monitor as well, or CRA.
Yeah.
So it's also a different skill set. So, have I completed everything in accordance to the pharmacy manual or the manual of procedures for that particular study? So even though we don't have much, but we have to think like them as well
Yeah.
for the in preparation for
Of
our visits
course.
and audits. Yeah, just to add.
Yeah, to make it efficient and effective on the ground. Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
So where to next? I mean, now that you guys are quite senior in your positions. So where would you, I can't see you staying here forever. So where to next? Mohammed?
Well, I definitely want to highlight, maybe Hamisha could just shed some light on a lot of pharmacists from her division who've grown within the institution, who are completely out of the pharmacy role or pharmacist role, dispensing and management of IP. I don't know, Hamisha, maybe you can.
Yeah,
say.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity within the organization, and some of the pharmacists that I actually initially started off working with are now enrolled in the regulatory department in our side, quality assurance and program management, and in program management. So,
Yeah.
and they also have the pharmaceutical background as well when, implementing certain things. So I think I love what I do. So like we said, every day is a challenge, every day is different. So I don't find any monotony in the
Yeah.
job. For now, I'm happy where I
Yeah,
am.
yeah, definitely.
I am.
We're always looking forward to the next trial.
next trial, the
To
next
the
trial.
next
Yeah.
trial. And
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
our work is also investigator driven. So, from our research leads, they would, apply for grants and within their research space. And that's also that's also something to look forward to. I mean, because we are contributing to this, to this area. And yeah, we're always looking to the next project. And
There is definitely opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just what's your niche and what you have learned and where do you want to go forward with it?
Yes.
I think I like training. I love
Yes.
to train, and also if there's any opportunity in terms of training, especially from the pharmacy aspect, in terms of study implementation and a rollout and all of that, I wouldn't mind doing that. And shedding light on research and pharmacy because it's a very different niche.
Space.
So yeah, space. So I think there's
Yeah.
room for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's room for expanding beyond the current role.
Definitely.
I mean, obviously, it's based on what your desires are in terms of whether which areas you enjoy. So are you guys pursuing your masters at the moment? And interesting because I think there's definitely a growth in the master's area. Postgraduate degrees are becoming almost necessary, I would say, post pharmacy. So are you guys pursuing it? Let me start with Mohammed.
I think I definitely want to. From postcoms, I've been looking to do it.
You're going to do it.
I'm going to do it. However, I think there's also another challenge to factor in, when you ask about challenges, just your time balancing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to take on a master's, you have to be committed to it. I definitely do want to do it. I think now I'm in a much better space and I can take the master's on. And I think also just not to add too much pressure to anyone who doesn't have their master's. But yeah, when you're ready, I think I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I would really love to go. I don't know, you guys? You did your master's?
I'm currently
Yes.
doing my master's
Yeah.
in public health with the School of Public Health at the Wits University. So yeah.
That's wonderful, exciting. And Amisha, you pursuing it in the future?
Yeah.
Maybe future. It's always been at the back of my mind. It's something that I think I wish I could have done earlier.
Yeah, that's it.
Earlier, but I mean, life happens, but it's
Yeah.
always at the back of my mind. But I'm also I have a lot of interest in project management, so it's just now outweighing what I want to do. But
Yeah.
I do think it's, but Sarachai, we do, in terms of capacity building, they do promote the culture of having your
Mm,
masters doing PhD, and they facilitate it as well.
yeah.
So we can do it in the space that we are in.
Yeah.
It's just win.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
it was,
think, yeah, sorry,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say that it's also nicer when you're doing it within the institute.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to
Yes.
have all the support that you need. So,
Yeah.
in terms of your data collection, your analysis, you can
Mm,
even have some of the leads as your co-supervisor.
yes.
So there is support, and yeah, I will push them.
But I think from what Hamisha has said, you don't have to restrict yourself to just a clinical
Yeah.
pharmacy type master's. You could do an MCOM in project management. There's no harm in that. I mean, the skills that you learn will be applicable to what you do in your role. So yeah, I think that's important as well. So we didn't touch on pharmacovigilance, adverse drug reaction reporting. I mean, that is such the crux of clinical trials.
Yes.
It's a passion of mine as well. So post-marketing surveillance, and what happens post the trial, are you involved in that component as well?
Yeah, I am. So our trials, well, they're not trials, they're just studies, implementation science studies.
Okay.
They are post-market, and through those studies, we then monitor adverse events. So there's a very strong system in place.
Mhm.
So the sites would report. So the sites are trained. So we had SAPRA come and personally train the nurses on how to identify, report, and manage
Mm,
side effects and what the importance of pharmacovigilance is. Because even in the Substance and Related Substances Act, Medicines and Related Substances Act, sorry, it is a legal requirement for nurses, pharmacists, veterinarians to
mm,
report these because they inform how the product can be used in the future if the product should continue being used. So yes, I am involved. We report to SAPRA, we report to ethics because our protocol is approved by the ethics committee, and we also engage with the product developer
mm.
so that they are
Okay.
also aware of what's happening with their product in the market.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, so,
think
so yeah, but sorry, Mohammed. So are you guys focused on adverse drug reaction as well? I would imagine so in a conventional trial.
yeah.
Amisha and
So I just
Mohammed,
wanted
yeah.
to add that the pharmacovigilance is also ongoing. I
Yes.
mean,
Mm,
at site level and not just only at implementation level. However, we might not just be directly involved in collecting that because there might be a blinded trial.
Yeah.
So
yes,
for example, then you separate your pharmacists because we will be
yes,
unblinded. So if we know, oh, this guy is having all these effects, he's an
yes.
actor, or so there is that separation between the blinded team and the unblinded team. The blinded team would collect all the adverse reactions, but they wouldn't know what arm this participant is on. And
Mm,
then the unblinded team would know what they're on. However, we wouldn't know any data or know what is
yes.
happening to this person. So that's now the separation or the operational point
Mm,
between the two. But
yeah.
the collection of the adverse events or serious adverse events and adverse drug reactions are collected. It might just not
Mm.
be done by the unblinded team.
Okay, wonderful. So my last question before we conclude, I think it'll be my last one, is on audits. SAPRA and Pharmacy Council, we need them. They have a core role in ensuring quality of medicines and safety to the public. So how does SAPRA get involved when it comes to clinical trials, and what is their role?
So
Hamisha, let me start with you.
okay.
Sorry,
All right.
Madhusati.
We cannot conduct any study or implement any protocol without the approvals of SAPRA and ethics. They have to review, and it has to be in alignment with what their vision, and protecting the rights of your patients, and if the trial is actually, we
Mm,
can continue with it. We do have sometimes SAPRA initiated inspections, on certain studies, especially, studies that are high enrolling at certain sites and that. So that would actually, trigger for a SAPRA inspection or even, FDA or EMA as well. So it's local and international authority bodies that would come. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think everything we do is also being reported to SAPRA before the trial is initiated. We first have to get SAPRA approval, or any IRB has to first approve the study. Then they also approve how much drug are you bringing in. So that's an important thing for the pharmacist to note. We only approve to bring in this much. Sometimes maybe a sponsor would send you a little bit more. Then you've got to be aware of that. What are we approved to receive and what did we receive? And then also it's ongoing. I'm not sure if it's every 3 months or every 6 months. 6 months, right? Then we send a report to SAPRA. What's going on in the trial? Are there any protocol deviations? That all gets either documented by the sponsor or by the CRO, and they send it off to SAPRA, or at site level. I'm just not too sure. But it's an ongoing process, and I mean SAPRA can do unannounced visit or an announced visit. They'll tell you, okay, we'd like to come and audit you for this trial on this day, and they'll give you like a notice period, or they can come at any time, and say we're here for an audit. And I think also important thing to note is to learn from an audit. SAPRA would come in and they'd evaluate your entire process and tell you, okay, this is what we found, and then for yourself as well, then okay, these are areas I need to improve on. And it's always good to have an auditor come to site. And there's also not only a SAPRA auditor or like a regulatory body, you could have a sponsor audit as well, where the sponsor would want to know, okay, how was this trial conducted? Let us come out to site and evaluate and see that as well.
Yeah. I think that it ties back into that challenge of always trying to maintain that standard.
Yes.
Because you must always be audit
ready, yeah.
at all times, and that's why you have to maintain that standard at any given time. So even if you drop unannounced, we are SAPC compliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa, to you, do you want to add?
No, I think they covered everything. Because SAPRA is responsible for clinical trials in the country, and they would play a huge role in the auditing and inspection. So I think they covered that nicely.
Okay. Thank you. So, I mean, it's been such an engaging conversation. Thank you. We really appreciate what you do. I think we can't put a price to the importance of clinical trials in the world. So thank you so much for doing that. And I heard you say that anybody could reach out to you on LinkedIn. So I'm going to say that on this platform. Anybody can reach out to you guys. Thank you for that. Just assisting them if they need any guidance. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And can I say something, Trop?
Just going to stop recording. Yeah, sure.
Thank you to you as well, because you taught us. I think you made us.
Course.
And here we are.
I mean,
because of you and all the other
lecturers.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, that's so special. Thank you.
So
thank you. It's really it's very rewarding when we see our students succeed. It's just the most rewarding. That's our reward, actually. So thank you for doing that. It is evident from the discussion that the role of a clinical trial pharmacist is multidimensional, encompassing tasks such as drug preparation and dispensing, research, patient safety, data collection, and compliance. However, what really stood out for me was the enthusiasm and sheer delight expressed by these young pharmacists. Their collective joy in their roles is genuinely inspiring. Despite the inevitable challenges, their ability to support one another and stay focused on the ultimate goal, making a measurable impact on health outcomes through new drugs or interventions that improve patient care, renders this profession both meaningful and deeply rewarding. Thank you so much for listening to Pull and Perseverance, and stay motivated. Please like us or subscribe if you enjoyed the podcast.